Why did I quit horse showing? Well, let's talk about it, because it's kind of a long story. So I never consciously made the decision like, I'm done, I'm quitting, I don't want a horse show anymore. I would say I definitely wanted to slow down while I was in college, and I had just met my now husband. We were kind of doing our own thing. I was kind of finding my adult self. But after my long-term show partner Calvin retired, he retired in 2016. Well, technically he retired in 2015, but then I brought him out of retirement just for the Congress in 2016. And then we did like our best ever. And then I had a short term, I had basically a flipper horse where I bought a gelding, and I worked on him at home and added a couple classes to him and then sold him. So Tank was in 2017. That was the last time that I went to the NSBA world, went to multiple shows that year, that kind of thing. But it was still a lot less than I had been doing. So after that, it just feels like there was a really long list of things that kept happening that kept postponing me getting back into it. And it was also paired with the timing of, because this was 8 years ago, it was the timing of me meeting my now husband, kind of finding myself as an adult. We were in college, that kind of thing. And so after I sold Tank, I had Annie, which if you followed, you know that, we had lots of hope for her. She was born in 2015. So it's that 2018 year was supposed to be her 3-year-old year where we were going to start, bringing her along to shows and things. And that's when she was hit with EPM. And that's when she had to take an entire year break. And at that point, I did not have another horse to be riding or showing. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to let her have her time off. And we're just going to, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to date this boy. I'm going to hang out with friends. I'm going to go to the lake more. I was going to do more things rather than just horse show, because up until that point, my life had literally just revolved around horse showing. And because I was in that young adult phase where I was not necessarily completely kicked out of the house, but I was not necessarily being given the budget for horse showing that I had once been given by my parents. I was definitely very blessed to have my parents pay for my showing as a youth. And so I didn't really have the leeway to go just buy a horse and go, do what I wanted to do like I had done in previous years as a kid. And so I had to wait on Annie to be healthy. And then when she was healthy, it was she wasn't going to be necessarily able to do the level of showing that I had once done. And so we just did some kind of local shows, and she was a very, very solid horse to go take on trail rides and take to a couple Murfreesboro shows per year, but she wasn't one to go take to the Congress or to the NSBA world or whatever, just because she couldn't really handle the training of the stress of it after she had EPM. We have really managed her since then, but she just wasn't going to be the show horse that I thought she was going to be. And so after that, we really did start with Beyonce breeding her, and then we added Ethel, and then we added a couple more mares with Trudy and then Indy, and so we started breeding over the next few years for performance horses. My entire life ahead of that, we had bred for futurity barrel horses. We had bred for stock horses type, like farm horses, ranch horses. It was not necessarily the type of horse that I had always shown that we had bred for. So we really got into doing that. And then in 2021, after, basically years of being okay, I'll just go to a couple of local shows per year, I got the bug back, and I said, you know what? I have a big girl job. I can afford to go to some shows. I think I can invest in myself and in my own happiness and buy an all-arounder and get back into showing. And, sometimes that just doesn't work out. And so I purchased a gelding, and he was phenomenal, and literally everything on paper that I could have wanted. And then sometimes the rider and the horse just don't match. They just don't mesh. They don't give each other what they need. We just did not get along. And I tried, and there was also mixtures of, I'd be ready to go to a show, we'd feel good about it, and then he'd get a stone bruise, so we couldn't go to that show. And then in the midst of all of that, my Nana died, and there was all these life things that just kept popping up. And the longer you stay out of the show pen, and I was maintaining this horse at home, and again, we weren't really getting along. And so it's like I needed help, but didn't have the help. And it just kind of kept postponing me getting into the show pen. And when 2022 rolled around and I was really getting into the breeding, and we had 5 foals that year, and then we were, had bought a couple other broodmares, and were really sinking so much time into that, and I wanted to show horses that I had bred, that's when we decided to, I decided to get help and send Jordy to training, and there is where he met his now owner. And so she rode him and just like fell in love with him, and they just were perfect fit. So after Jordy, I just didn't have a show horse that was ready. Like I'd had babies that were growing up, and at that point I had kind of said to myself that I didn't want to go buy something to show. I wanted it to be from my breeding program, but that takes so many years to get going, and so at this point, I'm now so excited to get back into the show pen. It's gonna be 2025, so knock on some wood for me, but the plan is for me to show Denver this coming year. And Penelope's about to go to training, Wheezy's in training, and so hopefully in 2025 and 2026, I will be like fully back. So we'll see. But yeah, it's just, I do want to make it known that it's not this like perfect linear journey sometimes. So like horse showing was never not my passion. Horse showing was never something that I quit, that I wanted to take a break from. Life just gets in the way sometimes. And, sometimes I think that's for the best. I wouldn't change anything because all of those things led to me being here right now, So anyway, that's why I stopped, but it wasn't necessarily a choice to stop. So anyway, let me know if you have any more questions, but I'm very excited for 2025.